Hey, welcome back. We will just get right to the joke right away. So, what's the difference between a well-dressed man on a unicycle and a poorly dressed man on a bike? Attire. So, as always, take it all in. Pause it if you need to. We're going to start with video 7 here. So now we're going to be on section 3, Reconstruction. So we're now at the point where the Civil War is going to be over, but now the decision remains, what's going to happen? We know today that the United States is whole again. We're not divided between the Union and the Confederacy, but it's important to know how we kind of got to that. And as always, anything government, there is going to be some compromise. So as I use this term Reconstruction, I put just kind of a basic definition here, rebuilding after the Civil War. So it's going to be a couple different plans, a couple different strategies from many individuals, from Congress, from the military, all kind of deciding and wrapping up how are we going to become whole again. So first we'll talk about what's called the Radical Republicans. So we're going to take a step back to 1863, and I know we ended with the Lincoln assassination and how the war was going to be over, but on the last video. But in 1863 of December, Lincoln proposes what he calls the Proclamation of Amnesty. So he's already looking big picture. He's already looking at what can we do as a country to become whole again. So he comes up with this plan. So his Proclamation of Amnesty, what he wants to do, he wants to pardon all Southerners who took an oath of loyalty. So if you were for the Confederacy and you took an oath of loyalty that you would never again commit treason, you will never again try to start a war against the United States, anything you may have done is forgiven. So all those people are going to be pardoned as long as they take that oath of loyalty and oath of allegiance to the United States. So overall, maybe not anything too radical, just saying that we want to forgive people, we want to bring the country whole again. However, once they give an oath of loyalty, and his kind of thought on it was once 10% of the state who voted in the election of 1860, so once 10% of his citizens sign an oath of loyalty, then they can create a state constitution once again. But his one catch is any government official who's from the Confederacy, they cannot be a part of the new state constitution. They cannot be a part of any elected assembly. And he does this just because he doesn't want to have another civil war. It's not punishment. He's not putting them in jail or anything like that. It's just this one time they can not participate in government. They can still vote, but he does not want to have the same leaders in office. Now, the Radical Republicans are another group in Congress, and the Republicans and Democrats, they are splitted kind of in like little cliques almost as a way to explain it. But the Radical Republicans, they want to gain more power in the South. And most notably, they are Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner. And Charles Sumner, I told you guys the story of the caning of him. But he's back in office. He is gaining more and more fame, and he wants to have more power in the South. And realistically, the biggest goal of that, they want African Americans to earn suffrage rights in the South. But that's a hard tell, because in the South, they have to approve the 13th Amendment where slavery is not going to be allowed. But it's a big cultural change, and simply put, they're not willing to do that for quite some time. So they want to gain more power in the South. They want to kind of get rid of the Democrats, but realistically, they just want to have more opportunity, more rights for everybody here in the United States. Now, unfortunately, as we know, Abraham Lincoln is assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, and as our Constitution states, if a president dies, vice president takes over after that. So Andrew Johnson, being the vice president after the assassination of Lincoln, he is now the commander-in-chief. And Andrew Johnson, he believes in a very moderate policy of Reconstruction. His is very similar to Lincoln in the fact that he does not want to really persecute large groups of people. He does not really want to say everyone in the South who was a part of the Confederacy is condemned and they're not allowed to be American citizens anymore, because he also realizes that that's going to be an issue, having those harsh punishments. So again, he believes in a slightly moderate policy of Reconstruction. Says again, Confederate leaders are not allowed to be able to participate in office, and realistically, this is starting to take a little bit more hold. That is until 1865. In 1865, when Congress reconvenes, they learn that a lot of the states in the South were forgiving, or they were not listening to the one rule about the Confederate officials, that they were by and large participating and voting in these elections and even running a lot of offices. So they are going to become very, very upset with that. So they are going to say that southern states, you were forced to ratify the 13th Amendment. So you're forced to, you are forced to get rid of slavery. A lot of them did that, but they come back with something known as black codes. Now, these black codes were very biased, very racist, and a lot of prejudices were still towards African Americans. Now, while there was no slavery, they made laws saying that African Americans had to sign a contract for labor. These labor contracts, pay was horrible. If you were not under contract, you could be arrested for vagrancy. Education was still not offered. It was very, very slim to be able to have an education as an African American. But the voting rights also still cease to exist, because now we're starting to get poll taxes. You have to pay to vote, or you have to actually pass a test to vote, which is unconstitutional today, but back then that was what the South was passing. So Andrew Johnson, he hasn't really gained too much popularity, too much fame because of this, and they kind of take his plan and get rid of it. So then they get to the 14th Amendment. And to start off, there's going to be a joint committee between the House and the Senate. Now, every individual who is in the House or in the Senate, they are placed on some committee. Now, whether it's agriculture or defense or ethics, just to name a few, a joint committee means you have members of both the House and the Senate working together. So the 14th Amendment starts by a joint committee. It was created in order to develop their own program for rebuilding the Union. Because again, we can't follow Abraham Lincoln's proclamation of amnesty. Andrew Johnson is not getting the results that Congress believes that he should get. So Congress comes in and they write their own law. So they write the Civil Rights Act of 1866. This is going to grant citizenship to all persons born in the United States except Native Americans. So Native Americans are still without rights at this time period. Now, as law or as Constitution states, has to pass in the House, has to pass in the Senate, and then it goes to the executive branch for final confirmation. President Johnson, he vetoes the bill. Now, once it's vetoed, they can go back and reword it, rewrite it however they want to, but no matter what, it still is going to have to go through the president. Now, the president sees this as unconstitutional. He thinks it's actually going to cause more separation and more frustration between different ethnic groups. So he vetoes it. Congress kind of gives up at that point. However, they come back with an amendment, and the president has no say, absolutely no control over a constitutional amendment. That is going to the people of the country. So we get to the second of the Civil War amendments. This is going to grant citizenship to all persons born or naturalized, and that naturalized part is a big catch. In the United States, and no state can deny a person life, liberty, or property. On top of that, if you are a citizen, you are also going to guarantee the right of due process. So anytime you are arrested or in jail or anything like that, you have to go through court process. That's due process. If you do not have that, courts could, or jails could just hold people forever. So the 14th Amendment makes it a little bit more open. And then the last one for the video is military reconstruction. Now, the Military Reconstruction Act, again, is going to be the U.S. government, more specifically, it's going to be Congress disagreeing with Andrew Johnson, and they're going to create their own policy. So their policy in 1867 completely nullifies what Andrew Johnson is trying to do at this time period. So what it does, it divides the former Confederacy into 5 military districts. So if you're looking at the map here, you can see the different districts. Each of these districts is going to be controlled by a Union general, and the generals are listed over here. Now, they are in charge of keeping order. They can arrest people. They can institute martial law if they want to. But really, why they're there is they just want to make sure that there's going to be a state constitution that is going to be written. So while they do have all this power, they're there more for a policing figure. They're just trying to make sure that a new state constitution is going to be acceptable to Congress. And one thing to kind of note here, Tennessee, they were not put under any sort of military control. And the reason they weren't put under any sort of military control, they passed the 14th Amendment. So all these states here in the South, before they are able to write Their state constitution has to include slavery, how it's now outlawed. It has to include the 14th Amendment. Once they get it done, it goes to D.C. D.C., in Congress, they have to approve it or deny it. And then at that point, they can just say whether they are allowed to be a part of the Union or not. And you can see the dates here. So January 14th, 1873, once the Constitution of Texas, once that was approved by Congress, then military reconstruction, it is going to end. So it is going to take quite some time, but it's done to kind of bring everybody together. They don't want to go back to the same way in the South where there was slavery, because they know that that's just going to cause that division and that tension that had really been building up for hundreds and hundreds of years, especially after the Constitutional Convention in the 1780s. Civil War breaks out because of the issue of slavery. War is over. They want to make sure that they never go through that again.